Well, this is the third week of Advent. And if you were here the first 2 weeks, you know that the first week we talked about we existed from the very beginning, before the world was. We have always existed, and that we are eternal beings. And in the second week, we talked about Mary and how the angel came to give her the wonderful news of she was going to be having a baby. And Mary represents in us receptivity and love and intuition. And in the second week, we talked about how the angel came to Joseph and told him that it was really okay for him to take Mary as his wife because she was pregnant with the Holy Spirit, by the Holy Spirit. And then last week we talked about, we considered the long journey to Bethlehem and how it parallels our own journey in bringing forth the Christ within, and how that journey was such a hard journey and such a tough journey, just like some of our journeys are sometimes a little tough and a little hard as we move along toward the thing that we are bringing forth in our lives. And Hypatia Hasbrook, in her book, The Trip to Bethlehem, says, the story is archetypal, for it illustrates the inner rebirth process through which the higher self emerges as the center of consciousness and becomes the integrating force within and transforms the individual. So for all of us during this Christmas season, it is all about transformation. It is all about bringing us to a higher space, to become who we are truly here to become. We all came with an agenda, and that agenda was to be able to follow our star and to really become the Christ in expression. And so one of our Jewish comedians tells about a Jewish lady by the name of Mrs. Rosenberg, who many years ago was stranded one night at a fashionable resort on Cape Cod. And this was one of those resorts that did not accept Jews. It was kind of way back. And the desk clerk looked down at his desk when she came and said, sorry, no room, hotel is full. And the Jewish lady said, but your sign says that you have vacancies. And the desk clerk stammered, and then he said curtly, you know we do not accept Jews here. Now, if you will just try the other side of town. Well, Mrs. Rosenberg stiffened noticeably and said, I'll have you know that I have converted to your religion. And the desk clerk said, oh yeah? Let me give you a little test. How was Jesus born? Mrs. Rosenberg replied, he was born to a virgin named Mary and in a little town called Bethlehem. Very good, replied the clerk. Tell me more. And so Mrs. R replied, he was born in a manger. That's right, said the hotel clerk. And why was he born in a manger? Mrs. Rosenberg said loudly, because a jerk like you wouldn't give a Jewish lady a room for the night. Well, what can we say? This week we're looking at how the doors were closed to this couple, how the city was so full with everyone coming for the census that there was no room available for them. And so we all have doors that close to us, don't we? Have you noticed that sometimes when we're doing something that is really important to us, And we have this project, and no matter what we do, the doors just seem to close. And we don't know where to turn, and we don't know what to do, but yet there is always a way if we are totally determined to do so. How many of you have had doors closed in your faces? Have we had expectations and hopes and dreams squelched by others? Were you told that you might never amount to anything? If some of these things happened to you, this Christmas story is for you. Have you had to search for your divine identity, had your search for divine identity ridiculed by your friends or your family, or told you were just a dreamer? And that did you think, and who did you think you were? Told that this was folly or unrealistic? Have you been told to be satisfied with the way life is and quit trying to be something that you're not? How many times has our own negative brain chatter kept us from doing something that we felt we were guided to do? Have you ever had that happen? All of a sudden you're excited about a new project. It's something that you really can't wait to do. It's perhaps it's a career move or something like that, or a job that you really would love to have, or a business you want to start, or perhaps it's a class you would like to take on meditation. And something happens. And the ego says, oh, really, you're just way too tired to go to that class tonight. If you just stayed home and relaxed and rested, you'd be way better off. That's really what you need. And so often our ego tells us things that keep us from moving forward. Perhaps saying, you can't do that job. You know that if you try that, you're going to fail. Why rock the boat? Why don't you just relax and, have a good life? But the wise ones followed a star because there was wonder. There was wonder that is happening in the world, and they wanted to be a part of it. And so they followed that star that guided them to the babe in a manger. They followed that part of themselves which was guiding them, which was directing them. That inner light that guides us to our divine self. And Jean Houston in God's Seed says this, the star, it is the connection of heaven and earth, the link between our divine and our human nature. The star is the extension of the self into the cosmic ecology, which only the wise ones recognize. And so this morning we ask ourselves the question, are we wise enough to follow our star? Are we wise enough to follow our star and see it to its completion? I hope we are. I hope we are, because this is the most important journey of our lives. This is the most important time of our lives. Right here, right now, in this moment where we make our decisions. There's a story from Chicken Soup for the Soul, told by Anonymous, that I really like. And this is the story. I have a friend named Monty Roberts who owns a horse ranch in San Isidro, California. He has let me use his house to put on fundraising events to raise money for youth at risk programs. The last time I was there, he introduced me saying, I want to tell you why I let Jack use my house. It all goes back to a story about a young man who was the son of an itinerant horse trainer who would go from stable to stable, farm to farm, track to track, ranch to ranch, training horses. As a result, the boy's high school career was continually interrupted. And when he was a senior, he was asked by one of his teachers to write a paper about what he wanted to do and be when he grew up. That night, he wrote a 7-page paper describing his goal of someday owning a ranch, owning a horse ranch. And he wrote about his dream in great detail. He even drew a diagram of a 200-acre ranch showing the location of all the buildings, the stables and the track. And then he drew a detailed floor plan for a 4,000 square foot house that would sit on his 200-acre dream ranch. He put a great deal of his heart into that project, and the next day he handed it in to his teacher. 2 days later, he received the paper back. On the paper was a great big red F and a note saying, "See me after class." So after class, the boy with the dream went to see the teacher and asked, "Why did I receive an F?" And the teacher said, "This is an unrealistic dream. It's unrealistic for a boy like you. You have no money. You come from an itinerant family. You have no resources. Owning a horse ranch requires a lot of money. You have to pay for the land. You have to pay for the original breeding stock. And later you'll have to pay large stud fees. There's no way you could ever do it." Then this teacher added, "If you will rewrite this paper in more realistic terms, I will reconsider your grade." Well, the boy went home, and he thought long and hard. And he asked his dad what he should do. And his father said, "Look, son, you have to make up your own mind on this. However, I think it's a very important decision for you." Finally, after sitting with it for a week, the boy turned in the same paper, making no changes at all. And he stated, "You can keep the F. I'll keep my dream." Monty then turned to the assembled group and said, "I tell you this story because you are sitting in my 4,000 square foot house, in the middle of my 200-acre horse ranch. I still have that school paper framed above the fireplace." And he added, "The best part of the story is that 2 summers ago, that teacher brought 30 kids here to the ranch to camp for a week. And when the teacher was leaving, he said, 'Look, Monty, I can tell you this now. When I was your teacher, I was something of a dream stealer. During those years, I stole a lot of kids' dreams. Fortunately, you had enough gumption not to give up on yours.'" This is a beautiful story of overcoming and creating a life filled with satisfaction and giving. Mr. Roberts loves to share his dream with others and to encourage their dreams. It did not stop there. He continues to give. He continues to welcome children to his ranch. He realized that his humane way of training horses also pertained to people. And so corporations and companies send their executives to his ranch to learn what he has to teach them about humankind and horses. And there's even more of the story. You know, not only did Roberts build this horse farm and train horses in this natural, humane way, he and his wife, Pat, fostered 47 foster children. 47. 47 children that he fostered, cared for, guided out of the goodness of his heart. He is generous with his time and resources to teach others to use his methods. What a wonderful life. If you want to read about him, you can actually find him on the internet. There's much more. I was talking to a friend the other night, and he was talking about people that he knew that restored classic cars, which is what he does as well. And he said that there were some people who do this who are really very selfish with their information of how to do that restoration. He said they mainly just wanted to make sure that their car was the best, and they really were not interested in helping anyone else because they were very competitive. But he also talked about some of the people in this club who were very, very interested in helping others, and how they would share their knowledge and how they would give tips on how to do things and how to do them in the best way so that they would get the best results and have as beautiful a car as theirs were, because they were not into competition. And I believe that's what we're about. We're not in competition with everyone else. We are here to help everyone else. We are here to lift each other up, to hold each other in high esteem, to be able to help another along the path is the greatest gift we can give another person that I know of. It's a beautiful thing. You know what it is a generosity of spirit. A generosity of spirit is what we're all about. I don't think you'd be sitting in this room if you were not about being generous of spirit. This generosity of spirit is for us to do. And it is an outpicturing of our oneness. Because we are all one. When one of us hurts, we all hurt on some level. When one of us is joyful, we are all joyful on some level. And we lift each other up. We lift each other up into a higher consciousness. The higher we go, the more we are willing to share with others of how we got here. And so, when we see the other, it is us. This is the generosity of spirit that Jesus came to earth to teach us. This is how he is saving us. By teaching us to be generous with all of humankind, to each other, because we are one. We are one. Jesus came to teach us to be our divine selves and to live out of that, to discover and to live out of the Christ self as he did. Came as an example. So I invite you to follow your star, to know what that thing is for you to do, whether it's to smile at the clerk at the grocery store or to help your friend in some other way. I invite you this week to find some time, carve out just a little time. I was watching television the other night, and I thought, you know, I've been watching all of these stories about other people. And I thought, you know, I need to take some time to do some self-searching within myself, to look within me and see what is mine to do. And so I turned off the television set, I turned on the stereo and put on Christmas music rather softly. I flipped on my fireplace and I sat in the semi-darkness and I just spent time with me. And as I did that, I knew that answers would come. I didn't expect them immediately, but I knew that they would come, and they will over time. But we don't do this enough. We get so caught up in the season. We get so busy doing this and that and something else, and then we just want to veg out for a while. But why not give yourself the gift of sitting with yourself and spending time with you and considering what it is to be the Christ in expression? What is that? How do I act from that place? What do I do? And I can assure you opportunities will be given for you to do just that. And remember, don't let anyone steal your dreams, especially your ego. And follow your heart no matter what. God bless.